It's time for the Postmortem Report with your hosts Ronald McGilray and Michael Schotter. Each month, these sultans of speculative fiction take a break from bending reality to ask one burning question. What cool stuff got buried in the social media graveyard while people were busy yelling at each other? Well, there's only one way to find out, so let's dig into it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Postmortem Report. I'm your co-host, Michael Schotter.
I'm Ronald McGilray. Welcome to episode 32.
No need to be blue. It's 32. Yeah, we're knocking them off. Knocking them off. But you know what else we're knocking off? Subscribers on YouTube. Because
Yes, saw
this
that.
is actually kind of old news, but that's how we roll around here. Because we actually, back in December, hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So thanks you all for that. That's pretty cool. Long time coming.
Very
Yay.
Well, at least someone's watching us, so that's good.
Yeah, it makes me feel better about all the work that goes into the show, that's for sure. But speaking of the show, what have you been up to lately?
Well, since we met last, I went out twice.
Oh,
Again, I've gone out. Very exciting.
how did that
So,
happen?
Well, actually, I didn't instigate either of them.
Oh,
My wife did. So the
nah.
first one was we went out to a movie, went to see Nosferatu.
Oh, are we going to talk about that later?
We'll be talking about that, yes, later.
And off the clock, perhaps? Nice.
And next thing, complete opposite of Nosferatu, is I went and saw Jerry Seinfeld.
Yes.
So
I could make an
that was-
obvious joke there, but I'm not going to.
So I went out twice, and
Yeah, he was with Gaffigan, right? It was like
yeah,
a double bill, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah. It's kind of a last minute thing, so it was entertaining. It's
Nice.
funny when we were there, when he started going through his jokes, his monologue, it was like this wave of nostalgia went over me
Mhm.
from the show kind of thing. Just listening
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
It occurred to me how big a part of my life it had been at that time.
Hmm.
He started talking, and I was just like, yeah, it was just this. Normally, that only happens with music that you haven't heard for a long time, and like "Bat
Hmm.
Out of Hell" comes on by Meatloaf, and you're like, oh, all of a sudden I'm transported back to like school days.
Hmm.
That's what this was like. He started talking, and I just had that wave of nostalgia.
Yeah.
It
Nice.
was a funny show because it was so strange and darkly quirky.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
right up my
Yeah.
alley.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
It's funny when you think about Seinfeld, the show, how dark that show actually was, but it was always masked in the thin veneer of humor, right? But when you
Yeah,
really think about like a lot of the stuff that happened in that show and a lot of the behaviors of the main characters, it actually is kind of dark.
yeah, yeah. So I guess that's why it depended on the kind of humor. That's why a lot of people didn't like it.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
you're a Golden Girls kind of humor,
Hmm.
or Cheers, then you
Hmm.
might not have been a fan of
It was
Seinfeld.
very almost countercultural in a way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but if you're into sort of or probably best kind of humor,
Hmm.
that darker one.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was fun.
Nice.
And because absolutely probably nobody cares, but I'm going to share anyways. I'm going to say what I got for Christmas.
Oh,
Not everything, because I was such a good boy this year. I had mountains of toys. But two
Nice.
things are kind of cool. One is I got Kindle Unlimited, year
Mm.
subscription
Hmm.
paid for me. This will be the first time I dip my toes into that.
Yeah, nice.
So,
Many, many options there to peruse for sure.
yeah. So that'll be fun. I've already been going through some books that I'd wanted to read, but hadn't really had a chance. And I thought, oh, I'm gonna start trying to catch up. So that's what I'm
Mhm.
doing. Trying to go to bed earlier.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about having a service like that is you kind of feel compelled to use it if you have it,
Yeah,
right? You're like, oh man, I got to get at least my one book in a month to,
exactly.
make this value worth it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not as much pressure since it was paid for by someone else, but
Sure.
still, I
Yeah.
want to get my money's worth of my
Yeah. You
present.
want to get your gift givers money's worth for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And the second gift I was going to talk about is I got a Landmark Movie Club membership, which
Hmm.
is a theater that's close to us.
Hmm.
And I get, along with the membership, I get points every time I watch it, but I get a free movie every month and I
Hmm.
get 20% off concessions.
Hmm.
So that's actually really cool. So that kind of motivates me to get out more, at least once a month,
Hmm. Hmm.
especially once again when it's been paid for
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
me. It's like a free movie a month.
Hmm.
Just hopefully there's actually good movies that come out.
They let you do new releases with that, right?
Yep, anything.
Yeah, because I know sometimes those movie theater plans that restrict them, right? Where it's like anything but first run or new releases or whatever.
Yeah,
So that's cool. They're
yeah.
including
Not
that.
this one. I can
Yeah.
see anything I like.
Yeah. Nice.
So, um, oh, if you can see it.
What's that?
I don't know if you can see it, but anyone watching, if you look right there on top of my finger, I got a Larry Bird framed picture. It's
Nice.
like autographed and everything up there. Boston Celtics. So it's up there. So that was cool. I've got that up on my wall already. So
Nice.
I forgot I even actually wrote that down in my notes.
There you go.
So, but I was looking there and I said, oh yeah, I forgot about my Larry Bird. So that's kind of cool. I have a Larry Bird ornament that goes on my Christmas tree.
Oh wow. That's like some super fan territory right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Love me some Larry Bird.
Yeah. Nice.
Oh, I got a good review on Cutter's Deep from
Hmm.
J.M. Van Horn.
Nice.
So I think, yeah, I've posted that up already.
Yeah, you posted about that the other day.
Yeah.
Yep. Saw that.
So, so that was nice. It's always nice to start the new year with some nice feedback. Actually, I
Hmm.
got two reviews for James' Journey to Dreamland, which I haven't
Hmm.
had one from there in a while. One from Izzy Tropiano, a young woman who read it, and another one from someone who actually picked it up at that pop-up book sale that I had.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that one's always kind of a soft spot with me, James' Journey, just
Hmm.
because, of course, I wrote for my son. So it's always nice to see feedback from that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is it's always nice to get feedback for books that have been out for a while, right? Because it's,
Yeah.
you're always hustling trying to get the stuff for the new book, whatever
Yeah.
that is. But then when your back catalog gets some attention, that's always a special little treat.
Yeah. Yeah. My short story, The Garbage Collectors, has been picked up in the Nightmare Library anthology,
Hmm.
which,
Yeah, that's your publisher. that did your re-release on Tales handled that
Right.
right, Belix. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of interesting. I guess people get the anthology and see all the different writers in their stable. And
Hmm.
if they like the stories or whatever, they can branch out and read the author's full works,
Sure.
which is
Yep.
what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Nice.
My short story Ubiquity is in Drew Blood's Dark Tales, Scary Stories Horror Podcast.
Hmm. Yeah, I saw that on YouTube recently. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I listened to that. He's got a very specific style,
Hmm.
Drew Blood.
Yep. Very distinct.
Kind of cool. And last but not least, Candy Witch is now officially being recorded as we speak. No pun intended, since there's
Uh-huh.
speaking going on there. But it's being done by the narrator of my Tales from the Parkland, Sean Cordry. So I got word that it's already partially recorded. So we just continue on. Now, mind you, it's a hefty book, so we'll see when it's
Hmm.
done. But the recording's there because I knew we had other books that were ahead of mine,
Yeah.
but I got word that mine was up next. Then,
Nice. Well, and with the production delay of our show, there's a good chance that by the time people see this, it might be done or close to it. So,
hopefully,
yeah.
hopefully it'll be fun because I'm looking forward to being able to listen to that,
Hmm. Yeah.
even if it
Nice.
is my story.
Hmm.
Always fun.
Yep.
But other than that, just been sort of taking it easy, trying to get back into the swing of work after my nice Christmas break.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, I think a
but
lot of people were kind of struggling recently with the whole post-holiday hangover thing.
yeah,
A lot of people were on struggle street.
yeah. And then all the Visa and MasterCard bills are going to be coming in probably any time now for everybody,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No
just to
doubt.
add that extra bit of spice to your life.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, if you're watching out there, please buy my books. My Visa bill's coming in shortly.
Yeah,
I
nice.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you. And,
So say we all.
well, it'll already be passed, but in postmortem time, it's the month of my birthday. So if you don't do it to help me pay my Visa, do it for my birthday and buy my books. It'll be a
Nice.
great birthday present.
Nice.
How about you? Anything new or exciting?
Oh yes. Oh yes. Many, many things. But probably the two biggest things that are going on right now, obviously, eight doing its thing. Very happy with the initial reception of the print editions of that book. The hardcover and the paperback came out in January, right near the beginning of the month. So people have already started picking those up and giving their feedback on those. Got my first couple five-star reviews on that book, which I'm pretty stoked about. It's always nice. That combined with the reviews that people had been dropping on the story singles as they'd been coming out last year kind of primes the pump nicely for that book. Hopefully, it'll have a nice, smooth Kindle edition release at the beginning of February. But of course, as we're recording this, that hasn't actually happened yet. So that's a fingers crossed sort of thing. But one thing that's definitely will have happened by the time you all see this is I'll be either deep into or have finished up the work on the audiobook edition of that book. So definitely want to mention that if it's not out already, you should probably be looking forward to and keeping an eye out for the audiobook edition of eight. which should be dropping sometime this month on Amazon and Audible. So keep an eye out for that. And then, of course, the big news this month for me was at the beginning of the show, you may have noticed the cover reveal for what's going to be my next novel, The Nemesis Legacy, which is going to be the 9th book from the Nodwell's timelines. And yeah, that's been a fun project to work on because obviously 8 and this new book are extensions of the original universe that I established in the first 7 books that I published. So 8 was the first set of short stories to extend that universe and expand on it. And The Nemesis Legacy will be the first novel to expand on that stuff. That will not actually be coming out and seeing the light of day until early 2026, but definitely very excited about it and very happy and pleased to be sharing the cover with everybody here on the old Postmortem Report. The other thing I'll mention about that is the pre-orders for that book will be live on Amazon as of the release of this episode. So if you do want to go check it out and plant your flag early, I would certainly not discourage you from doing that.
There you go.
But yeah, that's pretty much it for me for now. One of the things I'm really trying to do this year is to kind of focus in on fewer releases and fewer projects, but really trying to pick some good, big, meaty, beefy projects that have a lot of oomph behind them. And I think this is going to be one of the key things for people to look forward to for me over the next year or so. So definitely more to come on the Nemesis Legacy for sure as we get closer to release. But in the meantime, keep on keeping on with the rest of my stuff. There'll be plenty of time for you to get caught up by the time that new book drops next year. Having said all that, let's get into our featured post for this episode. And I have really no other way to say this other than the fact that it's a little bit sad. So kind of brace yourselves for this. But I did want to acknowledge and talk a little bit about the passing of Andrew Pyper, which occurred at the beginning of this year. And for this particular post, there were many nice tributes to him that occurred when that happened. But being that we've talked about this particular author a few times on the show previously, I decided to pick one of Steve Stred's posts about Andrew's passing to talk about and show on the show here. I think the other reason this occurred to me and it seemed like a good idea is just knowing that you've actually had some interactions with both of them. And in fact, we've talked about that on the show previously when you went to Little Ghosts a couple of years ago for the event to celebrate the anniversary of Andrew's book, The Demonologist. I know you got to see those guys in person at that event, as I recall.
Yeah. It was a shock when I heard that he passed away. Because it's funny. It seems like just yesterday we were all in Toronto, celebrating his book's anniversary. And
yeah, it's wild to think that was in 2023 already.
Yeah. And then to find out that, because I had no idea that he was ill with anything. And it just, as I said, I just opened it up that one morning and I was completely knocked off my chair.
Yeah, I had no idea that he was even ill. I was completely out of the loop on that one. So when that news broke, I was just like, wow, that's crazy. And of course, for that to be the case for someone so young, I mean, he was only 56. So that's another kind of shocker to that whole thing.
Yeah. But Steve, he wrote some really nice words and got the word out. The one thing about, bright side of being a writer is he may have passed, but his legacy lives
Mm-hmm.
on. So
Mm-hmm.
that's all the hard work, all those days and nights sitting on a chair by yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah,
pays off because he's never really dead as long as you're picking up his books.
absolutely. And, obviously, anytime we do a featured post, the idea is we want to encourage people to go and actually check out the post itself, but definitely do that in this case. Obviously, Steve put a lot of effort and a lot of heart into the stuff that he wrote about Andrew in this post, and I'm sure he'd appreciate people going and checking it out. So definitely go and read what he wrote there. I won't even try to summarize it in any way. Just go and have a look yourself. But I did want to actually include another one of Steve's recent posts to kind of lighten the mood a little bit, perhaps, because he did post something kind of fun recently about a short film that he did with his son last year called Monster Forest. So if you need something a little uplifting to go along with this first post, you might want to check this one out too, because I checked that video out and it gave me quite a few chuckles. So just another kind of aspect of his presence on social media you may want to have a look at.
We're posting both of those links,
Yes,
Steve
they will be
links.
in the show notes for sure.
There you go.
Yep.
So just look down there,
Mm-hmm.
click on them, check them out for yourself.
Do it. And that brings us to our next writer's life topic, which is not enough hours. And where this comes from is a general feeling or a general sentiment that I've developed over the past few years, which is that one of the things about being a writer, especially a self-published author, is there just aren't enough hours in the day to do all the stuff you need to do. And I think that kind of runs contrary to the perception and conception that a lot of people might have about what it's like to be a writer. And so I figured this would be a good topic to kind of delve into a little bit, because I think there's a fair amount of people out there who sort of have the perception that being a writer is all about sitting in Starbucks and sipping on a cappuccino and plucking away on your laptop, cranking out a few words or whatever, and just living some very relaxed, kind of laid back, easygoing lifestyle. But as you might suspect, and as you will certainly know if you're a participant in the publishing industry in any form, writing is a job just like any other. And in some cases, actually involves, well, actually, I'd say in the vast majority of cases, actually involves putting in quite a few hours a week to make things happen, and goes quite a bit beyond just the process of writing itself. So I thought it might be fun to delve into that a little bit and kind of talk about what it's like actually doing this job for several years now, as we both have. So I guess I'd like to start with you. When was your last coffee shop visit?
Never been to a coffee shop.
Yeah, zero.
Writing life, it's hell, Michael. It's hell.
Yeah.
There's no coffee involved. Well, mind you, I don't drink coffee, but
You don't drink coffee?
I don't drink
Not at
coffee,
all?
no.
Not a drop?
No. I drink water.
Yeah.
Like this
I do not
big
drink
glass
coffee
of water.
either. Now, people might say we're not real writers because we don't drink coffee, but that is interesting that you don't partake in the black magic either.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't like hot drinks.
Uh, so not even,
So
you're not a tea guy either.
no tea, no hot chocolate. I remember
Oh,
my mom tried to get me to drink warm milk for some reason. Maybe I was sick or something, or I had a stomach ache.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
all gross, repulsive to me.
Good to
I don't
know.
know.
Good
Yeah,
to know.
yeah. But yeah, never been to a Starbucks, never sat there in a cafe of any sort, never been to a bar, whipped out my MacBook and started writing. Well, for
Mhm.
one, I need utter silence
Yeah, that's
when I
another
write.
common thread between us. I know a lot of authors like to have music and stuff on when they write. That is a
Yeah,
no-no for me as well.
yeah. I just nothing. Need quiet. So it's that would be a no. No, it's when I'm writing, very serious work.
I think for me, it's a focus thing. I do require a lot of focus when I'm writing, and especially when it comes to plot lines and stuff like that, and keeping everything straight, because I'm definitely more of a plotter and a planner as a writer than a pantser. And I think there might be something to that because I know you kind of lean that way too.
Yeah, I'm kind of a mix, I guess, because I'll sit and actually the chair I'm sitting in now, which is my thinking chair and my reading chair, which is generally over there, other side of the room, but I move it
Hmm.
here for the magic of social media. But
Hmm.
I'll plot out like a chapter. I guess because I think we've discussed this in the past before, where I always wanted to be an artist. I wish I could sit on at a babbling brook and paint
Hmm.
something like that. So
Hmm.
the closest thing I could come to is I have my idea book, which I'll get before I start a new book, and I'll kind of freestyle because I find that's kind of arty
Hmm.
in my mind. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'll just sit there and I'll be thinking of stuff and writing ideas. And then when I get an idea that clicks, I'll start writing it. And then I'll get to a certain point, and then I go back to the idea chair and I just kind of sit there and kind of relax and sort of daydream and think up like how would this progress. I let it almost play like a movie in my mind,
Hmm.
work out a few plot points just to get me started, and then sit down and start writing it out. So it gives me the ability to sort of have a starting point, and then when
Hmm.
I stop writing, I always kind of stop at an interesting point where I want to come back.
Right. Yeah, you have to hook yourself. Yeah.
So, and with having like a job, my only time I can really write is in the evenings. Because I know some people can go, well, I write at my lunch break, or, I take a half hour here or 15 minutes there. I can do
Hmm.
that with my ideas. Like I can whip out
Hmm.
my idea book and I can jot down ideas that may have popped in my head, but I just cannot sit down and go, I got half an hour, I'm going to write something out.
Yeah, I don't even generally like to attempt any kind of serious writing unless I know I have at least an hour or more of time to dedicate to the process. Because I generally don't like to write less than 1,000 words at a time. So that's kind of my ballpark that I'll shoot for, and I often go way over that depending on if I can get into a groove or not. And so I kind of know in the back of my head, like if I've only got 15 or 20 minutes, that's really not enough time to bang that out or to get into the right headspace to do that sort of thing. And so it tends to make me lean more towards picking times of day where I know I'm going to have that big chunk of time to work with, just so I know I'm not going to get interrupted. Because to your earlier point, I really hate stopping in the middle of a thought or in the middle of a scene or something like that. I like to get to a good stopping point. And so if I were to be interrupted, that would really bust up my groove, I think. So that scheduling, I think, is very important for me when it comes to the actual writing part of the job, for sure.
Well, I would be able to concentrate if I knew I got to go pick up so and so at the airport in
Hmm.
an hour or two, or I have to go to work. All I would be thinking about is that,
Hmm.
because I have like a screwy brain,
Right,
and
right.
I'm very like, it's like everything's got to be dot 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 for me.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, there's a sort of comfort that comes from knowing your schedule, right? And knowing what the
Yeah.
plan is and knowing that you have X amount of time to do whatever it is that you're trying to do. That kind of, I think we're kind of on the same page. It frees you to not have to worry about anything and just concentrate on the actual work that you're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
Because when you've got something rattling around in the back of your head, especially when you're trying to be creative or trying to get something out there creatively, any kind of distraction is very counterproductive to all of that, I think.
And I've always liked working at night. It's always been that way. I'm not a get up first thing in the morning and
Hmm.
start cranking stuff out. I like it in the evening.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's a horror thing. When it's getting dark, it's dusk out. I don't know. And all the
Yeah.
horror thoughts come in.
I find that at the beginning of projects, I tend to prefer writing in the evening and sometimes late into the night, even because you get that state where like the house is completely quiet. There's no noises from outside. It definitely helps with the focus thing, I think. And also, you know, the whole ambiance of it being dark, being in that really focused kind of environment where there's not even light to distract you. There's something
Yeah.
about that, I think, that feeds into that. But as I get closer to the end of projects, another thing that tends to happen for me is I will go to bed exhausted, right? Because I've written for several hours, but I can't wait to get up the next morning and continue writing, where I'll just be like, that's the first thing I want to do because I want to pick right up where I left off and keep because if you get that groove going, you get that flow going, you want to just keep that as long as you can. And like I've even gone so far as when I'm getting near to the end of a major project, like a long novel or something like that, there will be like a mode that I get into where it's literally just like eat, sleep, write. And I'm only taking breaks as absolutely needed to sort of replenish vital substances and whatnot. But that can only last for so long. You can only keep that up for so long. But there's definitely times where I get near the end of a project where I almost go into like a marathon sprint kind of mode where I'm just trying to bang out those last 10,000 words or something, like at all costs.
Not me. I can edit during the day, go over, read what I've done, do some editing, stuff like that. But it's always got to be at night. Now, mind you, when I get up, I have a glass of water because I heard having a glass of water first thing when you wake up is very good for
Uh-huh.
your health. So I
Uh-huh.
started doing that. So I have drink my water, and then I have this 15-minute sort of easy kind of workout. It's supposed to jumpstart your body. So I do that. And then I have my social media time where I look to
Mm-hmm.
see what people are doing, do my posts, try to get out there, support other authors, see what they've been putting out. And then it's basically I watch the news at noon while I have my breakfast slash lunch, and then I'm off to work.
Mm-hmm.
And then I come home and I have my late afternoon workout, and then I have dinner, then I write.
Mhm.
See, everything, I have a sheet that actually breaks down hour to hour to hour to hour to hour. This is hour, this is next hour, this is what you do this hour, which I don't actually use, but I have it. Sometimes I just kind of like look at it just to
Uh-huh.
kind of remind myself because there's
Stay
so
on
many
target.
different things that I got going, you
Hmm.
know? It's like, got to do social media, got to, promote your own stuff, got to
Hmm.
support others, have to do a job, have to do exercises,
Yeah, yeah.
have to do the writing, have to do the editing, have to do our podcasts.
Hmm.
We are busy fellows.
And that's the thing, right? It depends on what's going on for me. Like, I would love to be able to just have the exact same schedule every day. But what I find is that I kind of almost have to vary my schedule based on what's happening, right? Am I writing a first draft? Am I editing something? Am I doing the layout work for something? Am I promoting something either that's about to come out or has already come out? Am I editing the podcasts? Various other related back end things? Or am I actually just writing? And depending on how much of the pie each of those different things demand in any given week, I almost schedule at this point weekly. I'll look at my upcoming week and I'll say, okay, these are the things I have to get done. And so Monday is going to be a writing day. Tuesday is going to be a video editing day. Wednesday is going to be text editing day. Thursday is going to be a marketing, advertising, social media day. And I find that that's almost what I have to do. But then at other times, I like to kind of mix it up and try to break those tasks up to segments within the day where it's like, okay, the first 2 hours are this task, the next 2 hours are that task, next 2 hours are this task, whatever. And it really, I find that having a little variety in my schedule helps me out a lot because what I end up finding is that I tend to get a little bit burnt out if I'm doing the same thing at the same time every day. And so being able to mix that and shuffle it around a little bit kind of helps me out and helps keep things sort of fresh and interesting. But the sort of common theme to it all is there's never enough hours in the day to do everything that I would like to do or want to do. So I have to kind of pick and choose, right? And let certain things fall by the wayside because I can't possibly get everything done every day that I would like to do.
I have no real wiggle room in my life.
Hmm.
So I stick to, that's why I'm always burnt out because
Hmm.
there's no time. It's all right from when I get up to when I go to bed is all pretty well scheduled for me. If I want everything to run like a smooth ticking clock, which
Yeah,
is like
yeah.
what I like. I like to have everything sort of planned. But it goes to show, like you were saying, sort of jokingly at the beginning, you know, sitting in a Starbucks having your double frappy latte or whatever
Yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
drink and working on your next big opus.
Hmm.
It's not like that. Oh, not for me, because a lot of people just, I guess they would imagine that we just, like as a writer just sits there, at a cottage retreat and just kind
Hmm.
of writes and it all just flows out magically. And then they just hand it off to
Hmm.
somebody and those people do all the work. And the writer
Right.
just goes back to some beach resort and
Yeah.
fills her pockets with money.
Theoretically, if you're a traditionally published author, that could possibly be your life if you're successful to the point where you have like a team working for you and supporting you and all that sort of thing. Theoretically, that could be where you end up, but that's certainly not where most people start or where most people spend most of their career, right? Even fairly successful writers don't get to be that hands off with the process until they reach like that upper pinnacle, highest echelon of the profession, right?
And I don't even think that's a thing anymore.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think there's anybody. I mean, you got to basically market your own
Hmm.
stuff. Doesn't matter how big you are,
Yeah.
because even the top echelon writers aren't raking in the big coin. You want to make the big coin, kiddies? Somehow get your book optioned as a film.
Hmm.
That's where the money is.
Hmm.
So,
Very true.
I mean,
Or
look
if you
at
can
even
manage
Stephen
to,
King. You see him on Threads, and I think he's on
Mhm.
Blue Sky too now. So, you know,
Hmm.
still out there participating. Doesn't really
Hmm.
flog his books, but he makes his presence known.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing about his situation is he's got plenty of other people talking about his stuff for him, right? He doesn't
Yeah,
need to talk about it because the world is talking about it for him.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think the days of like Hemingway, we can be sitting there drinking hurricanes in some Cuban dive bar and just throwing out sheets of paper that you hand wrote, and some person's gonna type it all up for you and hand it to the editor who's gonna edit it all, and then the publisher's
Right.
sending it
Tidy it
out,
up.
and they
Yeah.
just send checks to you wherever you happen to be. Oh, I'm in France now. Just forward my checks there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that doesn't
long
really
gone.
happen
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
So,
But, like
especially,
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. I was just going to say, like we've talked about before, there are pros to the self-publishing thing too, right? You get an amount of creative freedom and amount of latitude with your work that you would never get if you were working with a traditional publisher. So there's, pros and cons for sure. But I think like one of the biggest things I would hope to dispel with a segment like this would just be that idea that writing, and in particular publishing and self-publishing, is somehow some sort of easy, trivial thing that doesn't equate to a normal job situation. It is most definitely, having worked for decades as a software engineer, I can tell you I spend just as much, if not more time working on my efforts as a writer and publisher to create and ship and support and market products as I ever did in those industries. So it is for sure a job.
It's not a get rich quick, because I see these things,
Oh
write
yeah,
a
that's another
book
thing. Yeah.
and start making millions of dollars. Just whip out something, and here's our strategy. Well, their strategy is to take money out of your pocket and put it in theirs, with you end
Hmm.
up having nothing to show for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
A lot of exploitation happening in that space for sure.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
if you don't like writing, it's probably not for you.
Well, and, to just kind of wrap up that tangent that I was going on there too, it's also a job where you're going to work very hard for probably not nearly as much money as you would have made working a traditional job. You know, like if you're putting in like 60, 70 hours a week as an author, you're going to be lucky to make what you would have made putting in 30 or 40 hours at a traditional job. That's for sure.
But the writing part's fun. When you're sitting down writing,
Pros and cons, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
building your own world, doing
Hmm.
whatever, then you
Yeah.
can make the mistake too of trying to write for the market.
Oh yeah, don't chase that dragon. That's for sure. Yeah, because by the
Yeah,
time you get there, the dragon's already flown away.
yeah. So I guess to make it really worthwhile, at least for me, is to write something that I'd want to read, something that would be enjoyable to write. And
Mhm.
hopefully there's others out there that like the same things you do. So,
When I think that's a thing that I always come back to when thinking about why do you write books? You write them for a few different key reasons, but I think one of the most important reasons is because you feel like you have something important to say. You feel like there's something that you are trying to communicate to people or trying to get across to people via what you've written that you feel is worth all of the work that goes into making that happen. And I think that's like a core, key, fundamental thing that you kind of have to have at the root of what you're doing to really make it all work. If you have that, then you can endure a lot, you can weather a lot. But if you're just doing this stuff for some sort of trivial or like fanciful kind of reason, that erodes very quickly and that doesn't have a lot of strength or foundation to it. I can see why people come and go from this industry as rapidly as they do, because if you really aren't focused and kind of set on what you're doing and have that sort of gumption and that real strong desire to do it, it's really hard to maintain this profession or maintain a presence in this profession.
It's enthusiasm. If you don't have enthusiasm for your writing, it'll show, and no one's
Mm-hmm.
going to be enthusiastic about it.
Yep, for sure.
Because you could easily be, reading a book
Mm-hmm.
or watching a movie or listening to music or playing a video game,
Mm-hmm.
going for a walk.
Yes.
But see, because most of mine are, I go, oh, I'd like to read something about this. And I'll scan through trying to find any book that has something that kind of whatever I'm in the mood for. And usually there's something close to it, anyways. But then there's something I go, well, wouldn't it be cool if they did this or mix this with this? And when you can't find it, that's when you have to write it yourself. That's what
There
I
you go.
do. So it's like watching a movie or reading a book for me. I just basically write something that I was looking to find, but was unable to. So I just wrote it myself. So it's
Yeah.
almost like reading a book, trying to wonder what it is you're getting on the page and wondering where it's going to go.
Yeah. To kind of dovetail onto that a little bit, for me, it's I've always been baffled by the whole idea of authors who say they don't want to read their own work. I write what I would want to read. If I pick one of my books up off the shelf and I go to read part of it, I want that to resonate with me the same way I would hope anything that anyone else would write would resonate with me. And I think that's a key to it too, in terms of having a longevity in the profession, is you have to be as excited about your own work as you want other people to be about it. And I think that's something that is a good thing to kind of measure periodically. Are you as enthusiastic about what you're doing as you want other people to be?
And you have to like it enough to market it.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
that's another thing people think of is that, well, just going to hand it off.
Mhm.
And that doesn't really work anymore. Even the publishers expect you to help market
Yeah,
the
get your
book.
hands dirty when it comes to promotion and all that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to be ready for that as well. And that's time consuming,
Oh, absolutely.
especially if you're starting out. I remember when I was starting out,
Yeah.
I knew nobody, didn't know anybody, had no idea what anything was going on, had to build it from the ground up,
Hmm.
and super time consuming.
Yeah, I mean, it's been the case for me for years now that I probably spend two, three, maybe even four times as much time on marketing and promotion as I do on writing and editing and pagination and all those back end nuts and bolts aspects of it. Because if you don't do that, if you don't have a good chunk, I'd say at the very least, like 50% of your work time focused on promotion, you're really not going to get very far because your work's never going to be seen by anybody. Yeah. Because there's just so many choices out there. There's so many options out there for people to choose from that you really have to have marketing and promotion at the forefront of your mind, I think, as an author these days. You just can't get by without it.
But all in all, it's still fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Need to be
For sure.
like-minded people that write in your genre, can bounce ideas off people. There's pluses and
Mhm.
minuses, but I think the pluses kind of outweigh the minuses.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think the only thing that where I would say the negative would win is if you were just in it because you were going, I got to sell this because I hate my job at Starbucks because I'm looking at these guys writing on their computers all day, writing their stories. And I said, I don't want to sit here making another frappy latte. I
Mhm.
want to do that. And if you're thinking, well, I just want to sell one book, make $1 million, and then I'm going to go live on a beach.
Yeah, yeah,
You're in for a sad, sad awakening.
yeah, for sure.
So,
For sure. No doubt about that. I mean, you kind of alluded to it earlier, but it bears repeating, I think. If you're looking to make money, there are a lot easier ways to make money than being a writer or a publisher. That is for sure. If you're going to get into this stuff, you definitely want to do so because you're passionate about writing and publishing, not because you're necessarily looking to make a quick buck. Because, as Ron said, that's not happening. You definitely have a better shot at winning the lottery or something like that.
we were talking earlier, when we were talking about Steve's post for Andrew, it's, the big payoff is once you've written a book and you've got it out there, you're like immortal. Your book will
Nice.
live on forever. Hopefully on
Mhm.
someone else's shelf other than your like mother,
Yeah, nice.
or your wife. But yeah, it is kind of cool. I mean, look at Shakespeare.
Hmm.
Who did he think? Oh, kids are going to be reading my stuff in high school.
Hmm.
You know, years and years and years later.
Hmm.
That thought's always kind of played in the back of my mind. The
Hmm.
novel
Oh yeah,
idea
who
of
knows what will
immortality.
happen in the future? That's for sure.
Same with Edgar Allan Poe.
Hmm.
He was selling, but it wasn't until after he died that he really became sort of that.
Household name.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I was saying epic for some reason was in my head, and I was like, "No, Ron, do not say that because that is incorrect terminology." But
Nice.
but yeah,
Yeah, I think it's probably time for us to get on out of here. Any final thoughts you want to share with the nice people before we do that?
well, I read two books just finished because, as you know, I have Kindle Unlimited now.
Nice.
And one of the books, make sure I get the name right. Well, I know the name of the book is The Wolfen, was a very interesting book. It was written back in the 70s, but it holds up really well by Whitley Strieber. So
Hmm.
if you're looking for sort of a werewolf-ish read, Should check that one out. And also just read Beta, A Technological Nightmare by Sammy Scott, which was also very well written. But I'm still thinking about it because it was a multifaceted story. His play on each chapter being a different play on the same kind of story. I don't want to delve too much into it, but it's one of those books where it leaves you thinking.
Always a plus.
I would definitely say it wasn't actually quite what I expected. I would not rank it really as horror so much. At least not the first 70% of the book. But really well written. But I'm still thinking about it. I'll be writing a review at some point. So yeah, not bad. We're only halfway through January and got through 2 books. I'm on my 3rd already.
Yeah, nice.
I'm not going to mention that because I never mention a book until I've actually read it in case I didn't like it. Because then people are waiting to see what it is you read, and then I don't want to say anything bad. So
Yeah.
but so far so good. So we'll see how it goes.
Nice.
Those are my sort of closing thoughts. Check those 2 books out if you haven't read them.
Excellent. So I got a couple little housekeeping things before we get on out of here. One being, I actually did read that Atrocity on the Atlantic book by Nate Hendley that we talked about as a featured post in last episode. That was quite good. If you found any of that stuff interesting or thought that might be an interesting read, I would definitely recommend it as a solid read for sure. And the other thing I was going to mention is that we actually got contacted by Nomad Games after I talked about Talisman Digital 5th Edition back in episode 29, I believe it was. And they actually sent us a key, a Steam key for the game that we are going to give away here on the show. So if you're interested in checking that game out, you will find on the screen a Steam key. It's a first come, first serve kind of thing. So get on it. And hopefully somebody will pick that up and enjoy it from seeing it there. Having said all that, let's get on out of here and we will see you later this month for Off the Clock.
See you later. Go write something.
Right on.
Congratulations, you just survived the Post-Mortem Report. For more information about the show, the hosts, or the things they talked about, visit our official website at postmortemreport.com. And always remember, good posts never die.